It's been said that the best camera is the one you have on you, and luckily for me, I like to keep that thing on me. For more than a decade now, I've lugged around a bag full of camera gear with me everywhere I went. It started with my first cameras like a flip video camera or an old Panasonic camcorder, and then moved into low-end consumer DSLRs as they started to get popular. I couldn't afford real accessory gear back then, so I was always making these hacky little camera accessories that I also had to start carrying around as well. Eventually, I saved up to buy myself a Canon T2i, and like all aspiring videographers of the time, I kitted it out with a nifty 50 lens, a Rode shotgun mic, and a Zoom H4n recorder. All this heavy-duty shooting meant that I also had to start thinking about file transfers and have a laptop and hard drives everywhere I went. And then, of course, I couldn't look like an amateur with micro jitters in my footage, so I had to start bringing a tripod and sometimes a glide cam around, though, to be honest, the glide cam probably did more harm than good. In retrospect, carrying all of this around for my formative years, it's like no wonder that I grew up to have atrocious posture. That phrase, the best camera is the one you have on you, was popularized by photographer Chase Jarvis as a way to encourage photographers to take the iPhone seriously as a photographic tool, and to embrace its limitations as creative constraints. I've been pretty happy with the photos coming out of my iPhone for a few years now. Something about video always just felt like a bigger challenge, like technically and ergonomically, and sometimes like philosophically.
I ask for trust, cooperation, and permission without knowing where the experience will lead the subject. I can and will leave a place, a situation, a problem, but the people I interview cannot. The work offers the interviewer access and a reason to stay in worlds not my own. Complete distraction from my own life. A sense of invincibility. A sense of invisibility. I traffic in hope without the ability to know what will happen in the future. The work offers the subjects a chance to speak of things they have never spoken of. A chance to see themselves as subjects worthy of time and attention. The work offers the subjects the creation of an image of self, the distribution of which they cannot control, on a global scale, in perpetuity.
Something you realize when you start to use any tool with great frequency is the way that you and it start to mold together with time. A good tool is a relationship between object and craftsperson that gets deeper with each act of creation, each moment of deliberate practice. Beyond that, the camera is a special tool that has like these really great effects on people, places, and things in its vicinity. The right camera paired with the right operator can wield this influence, and when that happens, it's no longer just camera or operator, but camera person. The camera person's primary concern is capture, how to not miss it. This is the root decision of all lighting, blocking, and camera choices. People agonize over camera choice. I'm often asked, what should we shoot with? I say it's complicated. Maybe the question should be, how will I not miss what I'm setting out to get? Every level of production is about capturing moments with someone or something, some place, some atmosphere, beautiful or not beautiful, fact or fiction, laboriously crafted or found. The kind of moments we're trying to capture and how these moments are transmitted will determine the type of camera. My main goal with shooting video is to just capture day-to-day life for my own little personal projects and memories, and this is hard because there's no such thing as pretending like a camera isn't there and hoping that people act normal. The act of recording creates the camera's presence, or camera presence, what we feel when we're being recorded. Like switching on a heater or an air conditioner, camera presence is a change in atmosphere. It influences behavior. In quantum physics, the instrument of measurement changes that to be measured. Same with a camera. We will never know what it is like if the camera is not there. No matter what the camera's form, once it's there, it's there. Making a camera smaller in size does not reduce its presence. The question is strangely not whether the camera is there, but whether I'm still. In the case of my cameras, I would come to know the weight and distribution of my bag when I picked it up. I could whip the camera out from a maze of zippers and compartments in seconds, and I knew when I flipped the on switch just how much boot up time I had in which I could use to mount it on a tripod plate just in time to hit record. And damn, I was starting to get some really killer shots, just like the most cinematic vlog shit. It's an impressive muscle memory to find in yourself, honestly, and I was happy with what I was shooting, but reflecting on it also reveals just how many steps it took to capture a moment. There are cases of video making which have time to take those steps, but for my main use case, the camera was quite often such a hassle that it broke whatever moment I was reaching out to capture. So just to like bring it all together, the camera presence had become too great that no matter how nice the camera was, I was being a poor camera person for what I was setting out to do. In 2023, I finally ditched the heavy camera bag thanks to these two cameras, the iPhone 15 Pro Max and the Osmo Pocket 3. I've been using versions of both of these cameras for years, but they always felt like just like a secondary thing in addition to everything else I carried. The quality of them was like not able to hold up to what I really wanted to do, but something about these latest releases just clicked. And now not only am I completely satisfied with the quality I can get out of them, but they make me feel more empowered and more present in the moments that I'm documenting. And I feel like I'm noticing a positive impact in the subjects that I'm trying to capture as well. So I've been doing some thinking, trying to figure out like why exactly it clicked this time. I think I've narrowed it down to 5 points. The form factor of both of these cameras has always been phenomenal, to be fair. The iPhone always felt like this kind of like magic Kino eye portal that you could hold in your hand and be fully immersed in the subject. The Osmo Pocket too, like, oh my God, don't even get me started. You're telling me I can have this like tiny motion controlled gimbal and wireless microphone system in my pocket? Are you kidding me? It's a dream come true. I've always been fond of these cameras, but they were never quite extensible enough to do everything I needed, and the quality didn't cut it. So as for the extensibility, both of these are totally roaring now thanks to USB-C and all kinds of third parties making their own accessories, from mounting solutions to lenses and filters and whatever else you need. Probably one of my favorite ways to extend the Pocket 3 is with the DJI wireless mic system. The Osmo mic that's included and pairs automatically is awesome, but it's just one mic. If you want to record more than one person, you just plug the DJI wireless receiver into the Osmo's USB-C port, and just like that, you're recording wireless 2-channel audio to a tiny gimbal that can intelligently track subjects. Like, it's wild. Sushi?
Yes.
Sushi boat?
Sushi! I wanted to go to a sushi boat restaurant so badly.
All right, I know exactly where we're going.
Immediately, yes.
So the extensibility issue has largely been solved. What about the quality issue? For most of the history of cameras, there's always been this like inverse relationship between camera form and capture power. Like the laws of physics just necessitate that like the more powerful the camera is, the larger its form factor needs to be. But when you actually like unbundle the two of those and you treat the camera as equal parts hardware and software problems, things start to get really interesting. And that's where computational photography comes in. The camera purist in me spent a long time holding back against computational photography and the idea of having like dumb AI mucking about with the images in between the sensor data and the file that's written to disk. But in the spirit of classic AI, just wait like 12 months and it'll knock your socks off. Computational photography is here, and it's the whole reason why these cameras can hold their own against a $70,000 cinema camera in some circumstances. Things are no longer as pure as just the camera records a sequence of frames and writes those to a file. Each individual capture with these cameras is an amalgamation of many captures, many sources of data, many interpretations about the scenes and subjects. And this doesn't just allow the camera to artificially enhance the image quality, which is great, but it also gives you more flexibility too. It's really easy to slap a pro label on a product and charge a little bit more money and call it a day. But the thing is, like, pro video implies a very specific set of needs and capabilities, and previously it just didn't feel like Apple or DJI like really cared to address those needs with these products until now. USB-C, again, is saving the day here. When Apple first added ProRes recording to the iPhone, you could only transfer those gigantic files from like a Lightning connection or waiting for iCloud to sync, which was just like so painful. But now, easy, fast, painless file transfers. And so with that, like having production codecs like ProRes in here is a godsend. We've got more settings controls. Generally speaking, you can shoot pretty much the resolution you want at the frame rate you want in whatever shooting mode that you want. 32-bit float audio, which is like amazing for people like me who are just dumb when it comes to getting clean audio without clipping. 10-bit 422 log color. So good and so important. So you can do that whole thing where you like, rather than an act of creation. In all seriousness, having 10-bit log color on these just goes a really, really long way in making sure that the files are more usable, that they're malleable, and they don't fall apart when you start editing them. All of these like pro creator features and capabilities are things which Apple and DJI could have done a bunch of market research on and come to the reasonable conclusion that there's no reason for them to be in a cell phone or like a vlogger camera. But the reality is a lot of people simply don't use them because of lack of access or knowledge about how, but when they're included and they're easy to use, they unlock so many capabilities for anyone who learns how to use them. So, just because the market is visibly small doesn't mean it's not meaningful. And I think that like if you build for the creators, they will come. They want new means of expression. They are hungry for it. Why did cameras all have to get so serious and sterile? I'm all for a retro-feeling piece of hardware as much as the next camera nerd, but should the act of filming always feel so serious? Fiddle factor refers to the quality of a design that makes it feel playful in a meaningless way. Fiddleable. Designs with fiddle factor are enjoyable to keep around you throughout the day and fiddle about with aimlessly. One of my favorite cameras of all time, the flip video camera, was aptly named for the way that it had a USB connector that you could use for file transfer, which is like flip out of the side. And when I had this camera on me, I always found myself fiddling about with this switch and using it as like a kind of proto-fidget toy. But I think that there was actually something meaningful to the fact that the thing I was fidgeting with was also the tool of my craft and my means of expression and creation. I find myself fiddling with these new cameras in my pocket endlessly as well. The comparison that made me think of that was the flip screen on the Osmo Pocket, which is just so satisfying. But I also find myself playing with it in other ways, like displaying it on my desk like a cool spider, flipping its satisfying weight around, clicking the magnets on the microphone clip, and eventually holstering it in a slot in my bag that feels way too much like a coincidence, like that it fits just so well. My fiddling with the iPhone, at least from a camera point of view rather than a phone one, is a bit different. I use it almost like a director's viewfinder, kind of whipping it open at times when I'm not actively shooting to just try to see the world in a new way, sliding the zoom up and down, playing with different camera modes and framings. And before I know it, that fiddling often stumbles into something unexpected and meaningful to capture. And then finally, there's just a reinvigorated willingness to engage with these tools. Really, what's most important with a tool is that it actually gets used for something, anything. When a tool is cumbersome or inefficient or unwieldy, the creative act becomes more about an ergonomic struggle. You lose the flow state. For as much love as I had for those beefier DSLRs and pro cameras, they were a huge pain in the ass for just living life, moment to moment and day by day. They were heavy, they drew attention from subjects and thieves on some occasions. And they took such a deliberate focus to whip out and set up for a single shot. I found myself having to have these debates about when to take my gear somewhere, when to not, when it was acceptable to pull it out or not. The cameras in my pocket don't come with any of that deliberation. They're painless to pick up before I go out, they're nearly invisible when they're in use, and they have, with very little effort, become an extension of myself. What's really happening with individuals engaged in craftsmanship is that when they change their tools, they have different ideas. It gives them a new, different view on the world. It opens up a new possibility space, the space of possible things. In the beginning, when you're young, you think you have certain choices. But oftentimes a new tool will open up a new space that you didn't know about, and the way you get through that space is through the mastery of those tools. So there's this sort of epiphany here because you know what it's like to use the tool. It opens up all the things you can do with it. All of a sudden, now you have power. Now you have a possibility space you can explore that you didn't even know before. That was another excerpt from the book Every Tool's a Hammer by Adam Savage. Highly recommend it for makers and people obsessed with the meta details of craft. But anyways, let's wrap this up. Yes, in theory, the best camera is the one that you have on you. But it's also important that the camera functions in a way suitable for what you're trying to capture and that it pushes you to be highly capable at documenting the moment at hand in the way that you are trying to capture it. I've become really, really comfortable with what the cameras in my pocket enable. And I have a renewed excitement at seeing the world framed through these new methods of capture. And Jesus Christ, it feels so good not carrying around a giant overstuffed camera bag everywhere I go.